The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
In the way that Instagram sometimes serves me up stuff from almost weeks ago, Kev, I saw your Rosa with the house horse that you have. She's winning stuff.
Yeah, I know. Bless her. She entered her first ever dressage.
Yeah.
And won 2 classes on the first time ever.
No.
Yeah, brilliant.
She must be absolutely chuffed. It's going to cost you an absolute fortune, Kev. Have you got your wallet ready now?
They've started making noises about a horse transporter. I'm like, no way. Actually, the cost of those things.
You don't mean a horse box. You mean the actual thing that comes with a bedroom up the front and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, no, I mean a horse box. Yeah, they can. They're those things. The horse box, your general horse box, is reasonably, for what you get. You can get reasonably decent ones for relatively low prices because it is literally an iron box on wheels. Yeah. But there is one thing I will never be doing in my life.
Towing a horse?
Driving a horse around the country.
Oh, famous last words, Kev.
No. God gave horses 4 legs so they can walk themselves.
No, Kev, but they can't walk 50 miles to the next event.
Well, that's their fault.
Watch this space, everyone. Kev is going to be giving Star a lift in the horse box very, very soon.
The FujiCast.
I'm telling you, Kev, it's happening. If it's been mentioned, it happens, because it wasn't that long ago that somebody mentioned a horse and you said, oh, I don't think so. And then look what turned up. Yeah. So,
life is terrible.
Oh no, your life's not terrible, Kev. Look, I know you love the horse, really. Right, welcome to the FujiCast. You and your questions. A newly married Kev. Is this your in showbiz terms now, Kev? Where are we now? 5 or 6?
3, but
3.
2 to the same one.
This is kind of 3B, isn't it now? Yeah. Your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you want to send a mail the old-fashioned way, send it through click at fujicast.co.uk. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, don't worry, it's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very, very welcome. Kev's book of the week this week. What do we have, Kev?
Oh, we have a really sombre one, actually. It's called Requiem, by the photographers who died in Vietnam and Indochina.
Oh, my word. I have heard of this book. Wow, that's heavy. Goodness. Yeah. Okay, that's the book of the week. Scott Johnson is our guest this week. We like Scott, don't we? One of the a bit. One of the ex-photographers. We've been rolling out some of our friends of the show during the summer break, and Scott is one of those. And he actually recorded this before. I think it might have been the very first ex-weddings, all those years ago, Kev.
Yeah.
Or was it? No, maybe it was the second one. Has Scott spoken at both, or was it just one of them?
I can't remember. He came.
What was the one?
He was at the second one.
Yeah, and he went on stage, and everybody had to stand up, and he did this sort of.
He did an exercise class.
He did.
Yeah,
that was good fun. I didn't realise Scott. Well, you'll find out. Started his photographic life on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, a lot of them do. Schilling did that. Michael Schilling.
Yes, he did.
A lot of them did it.
Do you feel you've missed out, Kev?
No, I haven't got sea legs. No,
Would you not be able to do it?
No.
I'm going out very shortly. It's in I think 2-3 weeks' time, or maybe it's a little bit longer, to the forts just off the Kent coast.
Fort Boyard.
Is that what it's called?
No, but Fort Boyard was a TV show, wasn't it? I think they used the one off the coast of Jersey, but similar things, isn't it? I know what you mean. Yeah.
No, that's not. But that you used to be able to clamber aboard them, but I think with weathering and various other things, you can't go aboard them anymore. But people, these sort of islands and these sort of old fortresses that are off the shores of the UK, some people have actually claimed that. Wasn't one called Sealand, the Kingdom of Sealand or something?
Yes, he's a king. He's claimed it. Yeah, it's his own country. Yeah.
And he had his own passport system and everything.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. I love all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, very interesting photo stories. But actually, there was another one in Italy, and this name just completely escapes me. But a businessman that did the same sort of thing. He set up It was offshore, and it took a long. They set up basically a party headquarters. Took a long time to remove him. But when you try and look for photographs of the time, it's not greatly documented, which is a great shame. Really is. Love to see behind the scenes of what was going on in all these. Well, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah. No, I would as well.
I'll tell you what.
It's fascinating with that kind of stuff.
I bet Mrs. Stevenson was out there.
Oh, dear.
Mrs. Stevenson's become sort of, I think she's going to become one of these folklore legends. Mrs. Stevenson. Right.
Mrs. Stevenson.
No, that was a different movie. Right. Questions. Yours. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go on then.
This is a question from Graham Harris. Harry's probably, he says, lens cloths, question mark. There are those who spend a serious amount of wonga on a specialist kit.
Yeah.
Others, like me, it's whatever I'm wearing. What's your lens cloth of choice?
I'm the same as Graham, actually. It's a T-shirt or a shirt or whatever's handy at the time. Probably not a woolen jumper. That's useless, just smears. But you normally, when you need to use this thing, you're nowhere near the bag that has the expensive loincloth in it. Or lens cloth, I call it a loincloth. And you don't...
Remind me never to clean my cameras with your cloths.
It's never around when... I just rip up old pants, Kev. I'll wash them first. They're never around when you need them, though, are you? Are they, rather?
No. I can't remember the last time I wiped a lens, but yeah, I'm the same. I would use my whatever I'm wearing. Yeah.
There's a reason, Kev, when every time you've borrowed a lens cloth from me, it's got a slight Y on it. You never realised, did you?
Oh, that's proper grim.
It is a bit grim. But, yeah. I mean, you should really use a lint-free cloth, shouldn't you? I
have no idea. Should you? I don't know. The Fujifilm lenses, or at least the kind of higher-end ones, all come with little bags, don't they? Little kind of bags that act as a lens cloth as well.
The trouble is they're in the bottom of the box, Kevin. What do? You throw the box away, so you've never got one of these.
I throw all of those away.
No, that's why you haven't got them. That's why you have to use my Y fronts. But you should really use, I think it's a lint-free cloth. What do you do when you've got, because inevitably it will happen in your eyepiece where it gets a bit grubby inside that eyepiece. What do you clear that out with?
My finger.
What? Kev?
Just stick my little finger in there.
Do you? Oh.
Wipe it around a bit.
No, you shouldn't do that.
Oh, that's what I do.
Oh, right,
didn't get that grubby, though. I can't remember. Like, the last time I did that was...
they do. They do.
Sometimes it happens. I notice, like, if you go, if it's an autumn wedding and it's quite... what's the word? Hot and sweaty outside, and then you go inside to an air-conditioned room, and then everything steams up. Yeah. Then I'm using my shirt to kind of clean it out. But
I was always told you should get a little bit of methylated spirits or something, put it on the end of a Q-tip, and then very carefully wipe inside. Try not to leave any of the cotton. Get yourself a good Q-tip, of course. And then that gives it sparkly. You'll be surprised. You'll think, my word, I wasn't seeing straight at all.
Make sure that Q-tip is not made of plastic.
Well, it won't be these days, will it?
Well, they are. A lot of them still are.
Are they?
Yeah. Anyway, that's a different story. But okay, whatever. You can use methylated spirits and Q-tips. I'll use my jumper.
Yeah. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Neil from Lee Arlock. Love the show. It's become a real part of my Mondays, and you guys, well, yada, yada, yada. I have a question about photographing children when going about street photography. Generally, I don't focus on children as the main subject matter of my work, but inevitably, they'll appear when making street pictures. Last week, I was approached by a parent asking where I would be showing the pictures, and I'll admit it made me feel properly odd, and dare I say awkward, like I was being accused of something quite nasty and underhand. What are your thoughts on pictures of children in street shots? From Lee, very good point. We've talked about this a little bit before. It's such a difficult thing, this, isn't it, Kev? Because inevitably, if you're taking street pictures, they are going to appear at some stage. And look at all those beautiful books that I know you love. The classic streets of London, the East End books that are practically made up of children playing in the streets, and it's a document of our time that bit I fear will be lost, won't it? That bit, because people are too afraid to take pictures of children for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think so. There's two elements here. I think one is you're quite right that it's becoming more difficult to document, rather than just take pictures of children, but just document everyday life. And that's not necessarily because people are are less happy to be photographed. But because now we have the internet, we have social media, of course, back in 1950s when these beautiful books are being made, it was a privilege to think somebody was taking your picture. It was like, wow, that strange fellow over there is taking a picture of us. And if it made it into a book or picture post or something, even better. Now, of course, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, all of this stuff where people are rightly a little bit more cautious about, what's going to happen with this picture. Now, what I will say is I've never been approached, and so I don't really have any personal experience of the situation. But I would also feel proper weirded out by that, because the implication is a little bit like,
it's grubby.
Well, what are you doing, you grubby old man?
Yeah.
And I think what I would do is I would just explain, just as we just talked about, just say, I'm a street photographer. I'm making historic pictures. And have a look on the back of the camera. If they weren't happy with it, then especially definitely if there's children in there, then I would just delete it. So simple as that.
I wonder if it's worth taking around small postcards or something that show just a couple of the images that you've made, and with your contact details, your Instagram or whatever on the reverse. So
maybe offer them a print or something. But whatever. But I wouldn't allow the worry of that, because it is a worry to stop me from doing my thing. A photographer sent me a picture the other day, and it was a wonderful picture on the beach of some people playing sport. And in the bottom left-hand corner was a little girl playing with her shovel and spade. What do they call it? Shovel and spade, yeah.
Shovel and, well, she wouldn't have a shovel and spade. She'd have a bucket and spade.
Bucket and spade. That's the words I'm looking for. Bucket and spade, yeah. And he said that his wife had looked at the picture, and his wife is a teacher, not Mrs. Stevenson, but another teacher. And so she's all into, safeguarding and all that kind of stuff. And she said, you just can't show that picture, you can't put that picture. And he was asking for my advice. And my advice to him was, it's a brilliant picture, and I would have no problem showing that picture whatsoever. The little girl, couldn't even see her face, wasn't doing anything other than what little girls do on beaches, and if you go into, I hazard a guess that if you went into any restaurant or pub or anything on that same beach or that coastline area, there will be pictures of the past of people on that beach playing and swimming and all that kind of stuff. So we must be cautious that we don't lose the right to continue to document things as time goes by, especially just because people are so conscious of social media, and the negativity around social media is not right. Most things photographically are used for good purposes, mostly, and I'm talking like 99.9999999%. Yes, there is the odd weirdy bloke and more weirdy woman out there,
but that's our relationship. That's our relationship with social media. We love to hate it, but we couldn't live without it. Take my Facebook away! How dare you! Don't want to see pictures of me on that, by the way, while we're about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's people's perception. And yet, if he'd taken that picture on a beach, he took that picture on a beach with, I don't know what camera it was, but it was a proper camera. Whereas if somebody was stood, I guarantee that if somebody was stood next to him, sorry, not on the beach, but on the street picture that we were just talking about with the child in the street, I guarantee that if somebody was stood next to him with a mobile phone taking exactly the same picture, that parent would not go up to the person on the mobile phone. Just wouldn't do it. And that's a dilemma. I understand the parent's point of view. I get that. But at the same time, we should guard ourselves against losing the ability to,
I tell you what,
keep on shooting.
No wonder more and more and more people now are making street pictures on their phones, because it is so much easier, isn't it? It's just a phone. All right, then, okay. Go about your day.
Kind of. Yeah.
But good thought. Legally, though, Kev, I know that it changes in every single country. Check your local laws, obviously. But legally in this country, where did Lee stand with that?
If it's in a public place, then yeah, absolutely. If it's not in a public place,
no.
Then you'll still be able to take the pictures, but it's what you do with them.
Yeah.
terms of editorial, all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of crossover rules and regs. But generally, if it's not being used for commercial purposes, if it suddenly ended up on an Amazon billboard or, Apple billboard or something, then yeah, that'd be very different. But yeah, if it's a public place, you can even take pictures of police doing their things, as far as I'm aware in the UK, the only type of police activity you're not allowed to take pictures of is any kind of anti-terrorism activity. How you're meant to identify what's what, I don't know, but that's the law. Yeah.
Right, yours, Kev, from Facebook. Keep sending your questions in, by the way. Send them to the email click@fujicast.co.uk or on the Facebook page. You will find the question thread, the only place where you should leave your questions.
Yeah, if you want them featured on the show, or of course you can become a patron, and then if you put questions in the Patreon, you get bumped to the front.
Yes.
Right, Graham Scally says, "Hi chaps, question regarding the RAW files on the XT4. I'm a big fan of using settings to create film simulations, saving my custom white balance, clarity, shadows, etc. as a user setting. I noticed when I shoot in RAW only, the settings from my user settings seem to be imposed on the RAW file itself.
Right.
This is great. But if I were to open the file on, say, Capture One, will the colors, etc. be just like the ones I see when I view the image on my camera, or will the settings only be there on the RAW file if I use Fujifilm X-RAW Studio, or perhaps not there at all?"
Well, the picture you're seeing on the back is the JPEG version with simulation, isn't it? So you're not going to see the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're shooting JPEG and you download that image, what you see in the camera is what you're going to get on your JPEG. However, both Capture One and Lightroom do allow you to apply film simulations in retrospect. They're not quite the same as the, so in Lightroom, you could say, right, I'm going to apply the Acros film simulation. It does a good job, but it's not exactly the same. Really, the only software that will give you identical results is X-RAW Studio. And the reason for that is because it sends the file back up the wire to the camera, processes it, brings it back again. But remember that RAW files that's the point of RAW files. So if you're shooting RAW and you are struggling to get the look that you are getting in your camera and you want to keep that look, shoot JPEG.
Right.
That's the answer.
Yeah,
that's the answer. A lot of people do this. I find I've had discussions with people about this. They seem to think that, and I'm not saying that this is the case for Graham at all, but they seem to think that you've got to shoot RAW because that's the professional way. And you need to have RAW because it gives you more latitude and you can do more with it, which you can. Absolutely. But if you're then trying to get it to look exactly the same as it did in camera, you don't need to shoot RAW, you need to shoot JPEG. Yeah. It's pretty simple, really. I mean, you can shoot RAW and JPEG and use RAW as the backup file, maybe if you want to do some different edits later on. But yeah, if you're constantly trying to recreate the stuff in the camera, then JPEG is your friend. Fujifilm X-RAW Studio will also do it, but it's quite a laborious process in terms of sending the images up the camera and back again and what have you.
Right. Do you want a techie one? We've sort of have one tech to another one. Peter Foote from Stamford. Afternoon, guys. Just purchased the Fuji XC4 camera as a second body to go with my X Pro 2. A lot of the reviews are negative about the lack of grip. There aren't any unless you purchase the additional thumb and hand grip, etc. How do you find that camera, Kev, the XC4?
Yeah, I did use it. Do I have it? I'm not even sure if I've got one. I did definitely have one on loan. I don't know whether it was a loan one or whether I bought it. That sounds really obnoxious, I know, but I know that I sold my XE3 for a reason, probably to buy an XE4.
Right. Okay.
But maybe I never did buy it. I loaned it. But yeah, so anyway.
Well, some practical bits here and how it uses it.
I did use it, yeah. And
it is small.
It is small. I liked it, I have to say, but I do understand why people struggle with it a little bit, if you've got big hands, especially. But what I like, and this is the XE4 is the camera I recommend to most people when they say, I just want a camera that, just has shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah.
That's your camera of choice because there's very little in terms of buttons and everything. They've scaled it right back, they pared it right back, and made it as small as possible. You can buy an additional grip and all that kind of stuff, but it's a tiny little camera with with the latest X-Trans sensor in it, which is you're going to get great autofocus. You're going to get brilliant lenses to bolt onto it. So yeah, it's a good camera. I have to say I haven't been down the rabbit hole of reading the reviews of it. But I would imagine that people with big hands will find it a little bit of a struggle.
Well, aside from the handstand, he says, shooting from the hip has been a revelation, and it's great to take discreet pictures of friends, family, and Mrs. Stevenson, especially when in electronic shutter mode, with the sound turned off. Oh, that's proper covert stuff, that is, Peter. Anyway, there's nothing to do with my question, but I thought it might be worth sharing for the benefit of others. My question is about the number of focus points. In the menu, we will get there, Kev. In the menu, I have the option of selecting 117, 9x13, or 425 bracket, 17x25. In which scenarios would I benefit from either setting, and other factors to consider, please? Regards, and Peter Foot. How would you use it? Well, the menu of having these options of focus points. All those choices these days as well. Once upon a time, it was just one in the centre.
Yeah, so the reason why you have multiple options there, by the way, is because I'm not quite sure whether it's a hangover now, but it's certainly in X-Trans 3 and before. You would have the phase detection pixels, and that's phase rather than face, were the ones in the middle. So the middle kind of 2/3 of the sensor, if you like, were the most sensitive autofocus points, and the ones on the outside were not phase detection pixels, and so they were less sensitive. Now, I might be wrong, but I think now that all of the latest cameras, all of the sensor is phase detection. So that might be a little bit of a hangover in terms of the reason why that option is there. But the reason why you would use one over the other, given that point, is perhaps if you are a habitual mover of the focus point, as some people are. I'm not. I lock mine in the middle, but some people move it all over the place. But you find yourself mostly focusing around the middle 2/3. Then you can it stops it from drifting outside too far,
okay.
And then coming around the other side and stuff like that. So that's really it. But yeah, it's the phase detection pixels are the most sensitive ones. In the older cameras, they were generally in the middle 2/3.
How do you lock yours in the middle so you can't nudge it?
You can hold down the joystick. You can hold that down and lock it. Yeah, that's typically the way you'll do it. Right. But just don't move it. I don't do that, by the way. I don't lock it. I just don't move it. I don't really find myself nudging it.
Because the Fuji system's so easy to move compared to other camera manufacturers, I tend to move mine around all the time. Oh, look, it goes right, left, up, down.
Yeah, I mean, I normally switch off the touchscreen, because if you have your touchscreen, you can switch off the focus point mover on the touchscreen and still have it as a touchscreen. But for a long time, I was moving things around my nose and all that kind of stuff, so I usually switch off the touchscreen. Yeah.
Well, that'd be horrible. You smeared it all over the back as well with your nose. That's another horrible thing, isn't it?
I should. Yeah, that's when I get your underpants out to clean it.
You need my wife runs, Kev. That's what you are. I'll send some down for you. Right. Shall we hear from today's guest, Scott Johnson? How long's Scott been an ambassador? Do you know? I should have asked him this, shouldn't I? Perhaps I did.
I don't know. Oh, it's a good few years, though.
Yeah. But of course,
not as long as me.
It's not a competition, Kev. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
So it all starts out in quite a different way for Scott photographically, as you're about to find out. We've been talking to some of our friends of the show and some of those moments that we've really loved, such as last week when you went to speak to Robin Revilius. And this week it's an ex-photographer, an ambassador for the brand. This is Scott Johnson. So, Scott, for the second time in as many weeks, I'm talking to a photographer who started his pro career working the cruise ships. You're another one. I feel I've missed out.
I know, you
What
did.
have I missed out by not working the cruise ships?
Whatever you've heard, it's all true.
Is it?
It's all true.
Well, mostly I've heard about seasickness. I'm not sure I'd have enjoyed that bit. I mean,
You know what? There was only one time, and it was my first week on the ship, that I got anywhere near feeling a little bit green around the gills, but thankfully I kept my lunch in, so it was all good.
So where were you cruising? Did you have a particular route? Was it the Caribbean, or was it?
I was actually very lucky. So we started in Miami and then went all around the Caribbean, through Panama, up Mexico, Costa Rica to San Diego. We dropped off there, picked up, went across to Hawaii and back a couple of times, and then did the route in reverse. And then I finished up in Alaska, which was if you haven't been, it's breathtaking up there.
No, I haven't been. No. And how long did you do that for?
I did 9 months on there. It was enough. My liver couldn't take any more, if I'm honest, so I had to come off.
So it's the drink fest that I've heard it is as well. Then
it is, yeah. All good things happen in the crew bar, because there's nothing much to do if you're at sea for 5 days. and you're on the way to Hawaii, there's generally nothing to do. There's dartboard down there, ping pong, pool, which is difficult to play on a cruise ship. You can probably imagine. It's good fun.
So what were you photographing then?
Everything. If it moved, I did weddings on ships. I did the captain's table. We had what was called frequent cruises. So anyone doing like their 5th and 10th and 25th cruise on the cruise line, we go up and photograph them with the captain. Formal nights, embarkations. I've been dressed up as a eagle, a moose, a pirate. You name it, mate. I've done it.
Oh, it sounds very showbiz.
It is.
Dressed up as a pirate. Do you ever go on a cruise now, or has it completely put you off?
You know what? I'd love to do it, but my wife won't go. She won't go.
Won't she?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's seen similar to those videos on Facebook with the ship pitching and rolling in the rough seas, and she's gone, nope, that's not for me. No, not.
Well, you see, that's exactly what I thought you'd sort of be. Never mind ping pong. When you're photographing people, your studio strobes are sliding to one side.
Well, the funny thing is, we had a Fujifilm Frontier in the lab, and obviously when you have when it's rough, you worry about cross contamination, the bleach getting in the dev. So we had we had to drain the tanks probably once or twice a week to freshen the dev up, because we had to keep getting contamination.
You mentioned weddings, so was the leap to weddings something that you did straight after the cruising, or how did your professional career start to lift off?
Jessops, like everyone else, I think. It was I came off the ships, needed a job. There was a job going in Jessops, and I did that for about a year, because obviously my lab background on the ships, I was running the lab in the local store, and it was there I met a photographer, and he said, I'm setting a company up, do you fancy it? I've gone, yeah, okay, I'll give it a try, and then worked for him for about 18 months, and then realised that I could do it by myself and set the company up, and that was back in 2006, and here we are at the time of recording, 2019, and it's been going well ever since.
So how many do you shoot a year typically?
Stupid, Neil. I do about 50. It's ridiculous.
Right, okay. Well, that's not stupid. That could be good business.
I fell in the trap of, I left full-time employment in 2008, and I left, so I left on the Friday, in the May of 2008, and the memory is I got to Victoria Station having left my job thinking, what on earth have I done? And then the credit crunch hit about 3 weeks later, and everyone had no money. I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to be in trouble. So I booked everything that I was getting and I was booking, and in 2010 I shot 113 weddings.
No way.
Yeah, 113.
113.
113, and then my now wife.
How did you feel?
I was destroyed. I'm not gonna lie. It was. I was a broken man. Come the Christmas of 2010, I was a broken man, and my now wife said to me, "If we have another year like that, I'm off. I can't do it." And which is fair enough. I was stupid.
So you've halved that number. So that must feel more. Yeah, that must feel more comfortable.
It does. It means I can manage, inquiries. I do the odd pre-shoot here and there. I do the odd post-shoot as well. So I like to get brides dressed up and go and do something fun without the pressure of the chef saying, come on, the soup's getting cold. So I do that 2 or 3 times a year, like a styled fashion shoot. So I'm giving more time to myself. And now my little girl, she's 6 next week, so I do less weddings, so I can spend more time with her, really. It's what we do it for, I think, The
stylized thing, the post-shoot, I didn't realise you did that. That's quite for somebody who has a more stylized, I know that you've got a documentary fellowship, we'll come to that in a little while, but when I look at your website, I see stylized.
Thank you.
Because I see pictures like the cliff picture.
Yep.
Which was that a post-shoot then?
That
Because
was a post-shoot. So the bride
that
on
makes
the cliff,
sense.
Yeah, it was a post-shoot, because there's not many people that would do it on the wedding day. But I have no problem putting people in positions like that on a wedding day, because the website is filtering people through, and they're like, I like that, and then we'll go and stand in the middle of a field somewhere and get some nice shots at sunset, or on top of a bridge somewhere or something crazy. But no, I like to. It's not fair to practice things on a wedding day, so I do 2 or 3 post shoots a year, mainly for me, so I can try new techniques out, try some new posing, and then I'll roll it out if it's successful for the year after. So it's a way for me to try and practice rather than do it on the wedding day. So
do you see yourself as a more stylized? Is that really your emphasis? Is that what you enjoy more, the stylized part of shooting weddings?
Yeah, very much so. If people come into into the showroom and say, we've seen your website, we love your style of pictures, then I'm like a Cheshire cat, because I know I've got 20-25 minutes to create something fine art, very stylized, and I like looking for light, and I like to pose people properly. And when you show in the back of the camera, sometimes I go, "Oh my God, is that really me?" I went, "Oh yeah, of course it is. I've just taken it, so of course it's you." But it's just giving the confidence in the couple to now I can make something work anywhere really, which is I quite like doing.
Here's that question many new photographers ask when they're starting out, certainly in the wedding genre. How do you get the destination gigs? I mean, having people pay you to go to Italy, and I've seen Italy and I've seen America on your site, is all well and good. But how does it work? Both in terms of, well, let's start in terms of marketing, how that works.
So I was very lucky. The first few couples that took me out to destinations were friends. So I said, just pay me to get me out there. I can use it as a marketing tool. So they paid my flight, paid my accommodation. And then I just used it and put them on the website, and all of a sudden people start seeing that you go away, and really it's just good social media, good backlinking in the website, targeting people. So the destination side, we target that quite a lot on Instagram and Facebook. So it's just getting out there, and say I was in Florence a couple of weeks ago, and that was amazing because they've seen. If you don't market it, if you don't tell people you do it, they're not going to ask. So I'm a great believer in show what you want to do, and if I'm showing destination weddings, generally they'll come through. So
financially, can it work?
Yeah,
there's really only a handful of photographers that do what I call. I might need to rephrase this, but I'll say it. Proper destination weddings, where they're actually doing it as a business,
yes,
and they're not doing it as something that's great for ego and good shots just for Instagram.
And that's the thing. A lot of people go and do it and not earn any money just so they can brag and say, "Hey, look where I've been. It's been brilliant." And I'm guilty of that in the early days. And I think we've all been guilty of that. But Florence is a good example. So proper destination wedding. They covered my flight, hotel, transfers, paid me the going rate as if I was here in the UK for the wedding itself. And then we put a little bit of a supplement on because obviously I was out there Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I flew back on the Monday, so we put a little bit extra either end because I missed out on weddings. But I'm very, very fortunate. I've got a very good photographer that I work with, and he actually covered weddings whilst I was out there here for the company.
That dovetails really nicely, actually. You mentioned other people at the studio. There's 3 of you at the studio. One of the criticisms of choosing wedding shooting as a business is it's not very scalable. If, of course, being scalable is part of your game plan, if that's what you're going into business for. Not everybody wants to. Some people are just happy being the artisan photographer on their own doing what they do. Mm-hmm. But is the size of your studio, Scott, part of that plan to make a scalable business?
Yeah, it was. It was always a plan. The reason why I didn't go to Scott Johnson Photography when I set up was because I wanted guys to work with me and for me, shooting weddings and doing 3 or 4 per Saturday, for example. But it was finding that guy or person, photographer that I would trust to go and do it. I trialed different people, and at the point where you could say, right, you can go off and shoot by yourself, they'd all of a sudden panic and they'd forget how to do things. And I got more complaints when I was sending other people out on my behalf than I ever had for myself. So we stopped that. And it's only been the last maybe 18 months that Abs has been going out shooting for me, and he's an absolute gem.
You have fellowships with both BIP. In fact, you've got 2 with BIP. One of them is a documentary one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It was the documentary one is the one I'm most proud of, if I'm honest, rather than the wedding.
Yeah, achieving that photojournalism one, as you say, it must have been a pinnacle.
Yeah, it really was. It was something. The wedding fellowship for me. I mean, fellowship and qualifications isn't for everybody. I mean, people have tried it and they thought, you know what, I'm not a fan of it. And I tell my brides that I've got fellowships. I think I'm a hobbit. They just don't. What's a fellowship? So it was more for personal progression and personal growth. And the wedding one was a rite of passage. But I've always seen myself as a photographer that shoots weddings and not a wedding photographer. I enjoy taking street, documentary, environmental portraiture, everything. I try and do a lot of it. So the documentary fellowship for me meant more because it meant that I was good at something else apart from weddings.
And you've got the SWPP. Is that a fellowship there, or
that's a fellowship? Yeah. So yeah, that's
a fellowship.
That's in weddings.
And you're one of only 3 photographers to hold 2 master craftsmen within the Guild of Photographers.
Yeah, I need to upgrade that. There's 4 of us now. So
there's 4.
Upgrade. Yeah, there's 4 of us now. So
it's like Michelin stars, these things.
Well, that's the thing. I think people could say, well, well, what is a fellowship? And it's a good friend of mine, Dave Stanbury, and he really nailed it on the head. It's like a fellowship is like a Michelin star in photography. People, we need to start seeing it like that. And if you got 1 Michelin star, that's great. 2 Michelin stars is really good, and getting 3 is, there's not many that have got 3.
Do you actually believe they bring something of importance to your brides and grooms, or really is it more for your credentials and credibility in terms of the fact that you're a judge for things like WPPI and things like that?
Yeah, so brides don't care, if I'm honest. Brides, they see the letters behind the name and they don't care. They see the awards, they think great, they don't care. But what they care about is the result of the fellowships and the awards in the imagery that I'm taking today. So it's not a direct link, but they, without going through the process, my images wouldn't be how they are now. So there's an indirect appreciation of the fellowships by looking at the work that I'm producing. I think that's the. But take the letters away, they don't care.
Thanks to Scott Johnson, one of our friends of the show, who's featured in the summer holiday month this year. Another to come next week. Who to choose? Well, on my other podcast, Photography Daily, our new season, the Friday edition, is now the Photo Walk and a starring guest in one. And this week we're walking the Trans-Pennine Trail with your mailbag, picking up the route in Leeds by the old docks and armoury. When I say walking the TPP, it's really just a part of it. Very small part, because to walk the whole thing would be way over 200 miles. My guest back for part 2 of his story, Edmund Terakopian. We're talking about having a passion for this thing that we do.
I never want photography to become a job for me, as in a 9-to-5 job. I've seen colleagues who are 9-to-5 photographers. If it's, 10 minutes past 5 o'clock when they've put their cameras in their bag and Big Ben topples out of St. Elizabeth's Tower and bounces across the river, they wouldn't take a picture of it.
And we try to unpick what street photography really is.
To me, street photography is daily life photographed journalistically, i.e. not tampered with, not posed up, not set up. It's things that happen for real through day-to-day living, and it's finding interesting moments within what is usually actually mundane things.
Plus, there's inspiration from other photographers all the way through the show, including New York photographer Michelle Del Sol, who shares how to deal with tricky portrait sitters. All that on the New Look Friday Photo Walk show. On Friday, funnily enough. And over on the Photography Daily Patreon channel, the 50-second More show. We always have an extra show per week, and this Saturday, what happens when you find yourself in a photographic fug, or lull, if you want the British equivalent. Right, back to the questions. Kev, you're going first.
Okay, this is from Paul Robson, and we may have missed it, but he said, I'm going to visit London in August. Are there any recommended exhibitions worth a look? So sorry if we missed it, but what I was going to say is Photo London is always excellent, but I think that's September. I think it starts in September. But if you are in London and there's the Time Out website will tell you everything that's going on, and they do have an arts area on there that you can find out all of the exhibitions and all that kind of stuff. But if you just want a great gander, go to the Photographer's Gallery just behind Oxford Street. It's a brilliant place. Take your credit card, buy loads of books. There's always some stuff going on there. There's usually an exhibition upstairs. The bookstore is in the basement. They've got a nice coffee shop. Support them. It's a good old place, nice quiet place to go and have a nice old photographic jolly time.
I like the Hayward Gallery as well. That's a bit more arty.
Hayward Gallery,
Hayward, At the South Bank Centre, that, isn't it? That's a good one.
National Portrait Gallery usually has some kind of photography exhibition going on at some point as well.
And Saatchi, sometimes there's actually, if you go along that road, what's Sloane Square? Is that the Chelsea Road there? Just a bit further
King's
up on
Road.
Oh, is it King's Road? Further up on the left, you'll find it. There's a photo gallery there that usually has fantastic stuff from 60s London and stuff. That's what I always happen to see when I'm there. There's musicians and stuff like that. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of the place. Brilliant. Worth a walk up there. Near the Saatchi Gallery as well, isn't it, that?
So, but the Time Out magazine, the Time Out website is excellent. It really does give you everything.
Yeah. Right, what have I got here? Boys, I've been listening now for the duration. Does that mean the duration? Does it just mean one show for the whole show, or right from the start? When did we start, Kev? How long ago?
Well, this is what number is this? Episode 190, I think.
No, we're further. 195, I think. This one.
Oh my God, we've got a 200th anniversary coming up.
It's bearing down on us, Kev.
We're like a turtles.
What?
Turtles or tortoises. They live
Tortoises.
200, don't they?
Wondering what you were talking about then.
No, we started. It was a February.
It is weird actually having a tortoise, because we look at our tortoise called George, who's become Georgie. Actually, we didn't realize we didn't look at the gender. Well, we've only just learned how to tell that George is a Georgie. Anyway, despite
how do you tell?
They have slightly longer.
Okay,
they have slightly longer tails, and they're thinner. They go into a point, and various other things about markings. But we always refer to George as George, really. But it's funny to look at George and think, you're going to be here well after I've gone.
Yeah.
Because George will still be looking back thinking, well, where did the family go? One minute they were here, and now everybody's gone.
Make sure you leave them some food when you go.
Oh, we do. Oh, you mean when I go?
When you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's the point. Sorry, you were saying?
I can't remember what we were saying.
How long have we been here?
Tortoise. Oh, yeah. So we started February 2018, was it? No, would it 2017 maybe?
Have to look it up.
No, it wasn't 1 year before the pandemic. It was 2 years. It was at least 2 years before pandemic.
Was it?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll look it up.
Wow. Mrs. Stevenson would know.
Yeah.
So I've been listening for the duration. Love the Mondays, but I'm sure you'll add yada yada if I start to praise with too much aplomb. I have a landscape question, not literal landscape, but the landscape of photography. Will this change as our time in lockdowns end, revealing a very different kind of industry where we take on more than our initial genres to spread the creativity? All the best to you both. Niall Carsley. I suppose he means by that, are we going to have to think about, we've talked about this a lot, I know, about not having all our eggs firmly in one basket. Yeah, I can... The outpouring of your breath there suggests that you still don't have the answer to this one properly.
No, I don't think there is an answer to it, is there really? I also don't think that... I think most wedding photographers are busy now, busier again.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I've laughed at some things I've seen online. The very same people who are complaining about not getting, any support, state aid, no work, what we're meant to do, blah 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 blah, and now complaining that they're too busy,
too much work.
But I mean, not complaining in a, it's great to be really busy. I'm knackered, but it's really good to be back in the saddle. But this is ridiculous. My client wants me to stay till I'd agreed to stay till midnight, but I'm going to tell him I can only stay till 8 o'clock because I've got 3 weddings in a row, and he's expecting me to stay till midnight.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he expect? Doesn't he know that we're in this brutal time?
Yeah.
Just go till midnight.
It is a bit like that. I have to say that I've just thrown caution to the wind with stuff like that and think, well, if I need to stay longer, I'll stay longer now. Let's get the story.
Yeah.
I mean, I think an element of organising yourself into proper, into the way that you used to structure your business and how long you'll stay for people should probably return. But at the moment, just happy to have the blooming work, Kev.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, going back to the original question, I who knows? I think everybody, would always do a little bit of different stuff if they needed to, if they wanted to. I've always I've done some commercial work recently, which is not something that I've ever, thought I would enjoy, and probably isn't something I do enjoy particularly, but I've done it. It's another string to the bow, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't ever see myself being anything other than a documentary wedding photographer in terms of photography, and an educator of some sort.
So the idea of doing extra commercial work and opening up part of your website to say I do portraits, because there was a time with the new studio that you've got there that you were thinking that would become more portrait based, perhaps.
Well, yeah, actually, that's still on the back burner, and it may it will. It has to happen at some point because I've got that studio, but that I would enjoy that. I think the question is more about, is it, would you take on work that you didn't particularly want to do just to kind of get the shillings in? And that's the dilemma, isn't it? But yeah, the portrait stuff is still on my to-do list, and because I do, I love using that GFX and making, what I would consider, nice black and white gritty portraits of people like that.
Yeah. Well, you started photographing the people of Malmesbury, didn't you? I know it started with your mates,
the men,
Dodgy Dave and Postman Matt and
not Dodgy Dave, DIY Dave. I think you're talking.
DIY
you're
Dave,
thinking about
sorry.
Naughty Norman.
Naughty Norman. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with all the blokes. Yeah.
That was good. I like that, and I'd like to do more of that. But of course, just like everybody else, once everything started, we had 18 months of scratching our bums, not really doing much. I mean, you did a hell of a lot with the Photography Daily and all that kind of stuff, and I did different projects and everything. But then, of course, when things started up again, boom. It's like, oh, well, no, I haven't got time to do anything else.
It was I had to readdress the amount of time I was spending on podcasts. Yes, I did. Whilst also maintaining the fact that I see as my future. I do. I see that as my future. So it's kind of like I had to say, right, what can I do? And what can I do that is of subsequent value that I can then start to accelerate again? And I think we've all had to do that with our photography and our lives and everything, haven't we? It was a famine and feast. It has been for many people, hasn't it? Complete famine. And then for all those people moaning about staying an extra hour for the wedding photography, complete feast.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, you never want that to happen again the way that it did, that you think, oh, my eggs, here we go. And another nasty's come over and I've got to stop my business all over again. Why didn't I do X?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one thing's for sure, if this kind of thing happens again in the near future, there won't be the support. There won't be, it will be a case of, well, you need to learn lessons from last time, for industries all over. So hopefully it won't happen again.
Well, we're going to come and live with you, Kev, all of us.
That's fine. Yeah. I'll move into the studio. Nice here.
Well, there's a stable we can move into. Star will be in there. Ready and waiting. Right, book for this week. Now we have to sort of turn the tone slightly differently because this is quite a heavy book, isn't it? Well, I don't mean that physically, although it is quite a large book, isn't it? But I mean that mentally in the subject matter that you have. It's a lot more serious than the stuff we've looked at of late.
Oh, much more so. It's actually a heartbreaking book.
Yeah.
And this was also gifted to us by Brad Wakefield. So I'll read the blurb, which I usually do. So the book is called A Requiem by the photographers who died in the Vietnam and Indochina wars. So between the height of the French Indochina War in the 50s and the fall of Saigon in 1975, 135 photographers from all sides of the conflict are recorded as missing or have been killed. 135.
Amazing.
This book is a memorial to those men and women, and in many cases it includes the last photographs they took. Horst Fass and Tim Page are the people who put the book together. Two photographers who worked and were wounded in Vietnam have gathered many thousands of pictures by those who were killed. Their searches have taken them through the archives in Hanoi as well as those of Western agencies. In some cases, families have generously provided access to private files where unknown bodies of work have lain unseen for more than 40 years. The list of the dead includes some of the greatest photographers of the century, such as Robert Capa and Larry Burroughs, and some who have been working in Vietnam for only a matter of days before their deaths. A number of Cambodian photographers working for the Western press were executed. Other photographers like Sean Flynn and Dana Stone disappeared. Their loss inspired Tim Page to begin this memorial. The resulting sequence of photographs follows the course of the war and the transformation of the serene landscapes of Cambodia and Vietnam into scenes of nightmarish devastation. At the moments of intense battle, one is reminded not only of the courage of the photographers, but of the compassion amid the brutality of war. These photographers were intimate with war to a degree that may well be denied future generations. That intimacy led to their deaths, and their photographs are their legacy. Physically, it's quite a big, chunky book as well. It's a beautifully put together book. Beautifully. The opening cover, the inside of the cover is the names of the photographers featured. I won't read them all out. It's quite well done in terms of it. It highlights the country they're from, and then it gives the names. So, for example, Australia starts with Australia, Alan Hirons, Austria, Genslucker. There's a whole load from Britain, and then France as well, Japan, Germany, Singapore, United States, a lot from the United States. But interestingly, probably a lot of the ones that you people won't have heard of are from Vietnam and Cambodia, and that's a reference to the agency photographers that were on the ground there, who also lost their lives. There is quite a lot of brutal photography in this book. This isn't something you're going to pick up and, from an inspiration point of view, this is something you pick up because you have total respect, not only for the photographers, but for everybody that was involved, all the innocent people that were involved in it. And some of these pictures are very, very hard to look at. Some of them are far more open and ones you may have seen in the press. One page 194, for example, is a very famous picture of the somebody falling from a helicopter, a soldier falling from a helicopter. There's a lot of, you really, it's intense. These photographs are in the middle of these firefights. There's explosions, there's all sorts, and you're there. The photographer is there, and
they were made often pretty much all the time, weren't they? But manually, they were made manually.
Oh yeah,
you're not going to be doing.
You've got to be thinking on your feet as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah,
but it's the sense of the moment when you're there that really, really makes you think, my God, these people, these men and women, were truly doing something that, we scoff at street photography and people telling us not to take pictures of our kids, and then we chide back with that as well. It's all right, we're telling the stories of history. There's a point there, but actually these are really the stories. These are the history stories. And these photographers, of course, it was their jobs in most cases. So they jumped on the plane, they got sent there to do their job. But it's critical that I think the point made in the introduction to the book is that probably we won't see this type of conflict photography again. You only have to see what's going on in Afghanistan again to realize that conflicts aren't going to go away, because the people in the world, there are people in the world that just won't allow that to happen. But I don't think we will see this kind of intimate conflict photography again, because war these days is very different. It's often, propaganda based, and you just you don't see these types of images any longer.
Well, certainly
very personal ones.
Vietnam changed the face of the way people were permitted to take, or the places people were permitted to make pictures. Because initially, of course, everything was fair game photographically. And then I think people realised, High Command certainly realised, that this was not a way to win hearts and minds, a lot of what was coming out. And that's why I think conflict photography has changed so much.
Yeah, it's a real difficult book, an important book, but really difficult.
How much of it is colour and how much is black and white, Kev? Is it a bit of a mixture?
It's mostly black and white, but there are some coloured pictures. There's, it's just brutal. But yeah, there's, I would say, 90% of it is black and white, but there's some colour, and of course it's all film. There's a reality not only to the story in the pictures, but also the development of the film. There's no over-processed filters going on in this. There's no, will this look better on Instagram, and Facebook has squashed it and all that kind of stuff. This is as it was and how it was processed. And often these guys would carry the cans, the film, with them until they could get back somewhere or post or get them back to the labs.
Well, there was a story of Tom Stoddart having to get film out. Where was he based? It could have been Beirut. It might have been Beirut. But he had gotten to know Marie Helvin, of course, who lost her life later on as a journalist, and they were actually smuggling film out in her underwear at a time where they thought, well, nobody's going to check her. The way you had to think on your feet, even with as Tom and Maria, I think at the time, would have described it in slightly more humorous fashion, the way you had to think on your feet as somebody in these zones. And a lot of them don't really come. They don't come at all from a background where they expected to be thrust into war. Tim Page, I remember reading. I've just looked it up. What I found about him, I was reading about him recently. When I finally left Europe, I was planning to be in Australia for Christmas. I got as far as Lahore in West Pakistan. After I left England for Europe, I worked at a Heineken brewery and a chewing gum factory. I worked as a chambermaid, a sous chef, and also smuggled hash in Pakistan. It wasn't something he expected to end up doing as a living, being in war.
And of course, the thing is, we're concentrating on the photos in the book, the photos are, there's a lot of dead people in here, but what we have to remember is the person taking the photo also died. That's that's something that is, you have to consider when you're looking at each of these pictures. The photographer went on to lose their lives. It's a wonderful book. Tough read.
We'll of course put the links on the show page today, and thanks also to Brad for giving that to the show as well. Thank you very much, Brad. Right. Questions. Where do we go after that, Kev? Have you got something or?
Yeah, I got one. This is Colin Monteith,
right.
And he says, "Do you have an image that for some reason you didn't or couldn't capture that still haunts you?" He goes on to say, "Back about 20 years ago, I was passing an older house which had overgrown gardens and generally looked kind of haunted. As I paused and pondered its story, about 100 cats streamed out of a pet door and fanned out towards me on the front lawn. To this day, it haunts me in that I didn't have a camera or smartphone around, although smartphones wouldn't have been around then. About a week later on the TV news, it showed the city moving in and helping an elderly lady into a mental health facility, plus removing about 300 cats." So
And that was the
so
one-
have you got any pictures you can remember that you didn't take, or moments that you didn't capture that you wish you had?
Not really, and not along those lines. That's quite a moment, isn't it? What he's describing there. Often past things that I think, why didn't I stop and grab a picture of that? Just because I'm genuinely interested in it. Coming home a couple of weeks ago from Wales, we were right. Is your Kia sat-nav, by the way, like ours? It sends you down the oddest routes.
Mine's pretty good.
No.
Are you sure you haven't switched off avoid motorways?
Well, no, I'm sure I've got it on the right. It's honestly, B roads, everything. It's like, I'll send you that way. Now, I'm sure I've got it set up correctly, but we ended up going across this between two mountains in the sort of Snowdonia area. Beautiful place, isn't it, that? But there was this little bridge right in the middle of nowhere. And I was thinking, why would you build a bridge there? It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go over anything. They're the moments where I don't stop, and then I drive away thinking, I wish I got a picture of that. I know it's not a mind-blowing moment like the cat one you were just talking about, but...
How can you have a bridge that doesn't go over anything? It must have gone over something, otherwise it wouldn't be a bridge.
That's what I mean, Kev. It was in the middle of nowhere. I looked to the left. We all looked to the left, thought, why is there a bridge there? What does that do in the middle of this valley that has nothing in it but sheeps? As they would be called by Jeremy Clarkson.
That's very funny, that program, The Farm. I'm not a big fan of him personally, but it's a very good program. I wish, because I've photographed several births, but I never photographed any of our own kids. I did some of the before and after stuff, but not the actual thing. And Gemma says that she wished that I'd done that as well.
At the time, she might not have done.
Perhaps, yeah, absolutely, perhaps. But yeah, I do wish.
So very fiercely. Do you know? Well, if we're going to sort of exchange stories like that, there is. I had my camera with me the day I saw my mum compos mentis for the last time. I remember walking away in the ward and looking back at her, and there was this. She was very ill at the time and hadn't really communicated at all. But for one moment, she waved. And the kind of wave way that I remember of being a child being waved off to school. It was like that one split moment of absolute normality with Mum. And I had my camera, and I did think to turn around and take a picture as she was waving. But something stopped me because I thought, no, you can't do that. You're in a hospital. And there are other people close by. I wish I had. So there we go. Now there's over and above the bridge moment. Yes, that probably is the moment.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny you said that about the, I'm in a hospital, and Gemma always chides me because I usually say if ever I see something, I'm like, a proper photographer would be taking pictures of that, and she's always like having to go at me for saying that, but that's what I feel. I do feel like sometimes, I think, a proper photographer would be doing that. I'm not on about the one with your mum and the wave necessarily, but stuff that's going on. And whether you just can't be bothered, don't have a camera with you, whatever, I'm like, I always think about Edmund Terracopian, and you never, ever see him without a camera around his neck, ever.
Yeah, and he would use it.
That's a proper photographer.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Oh, Kev, let's just go off and open our coffee bar.
Yeah, should we do that?
And we'll show pictures of Edmunds.
Yeah, we'll just have loads of pictures of Edmund Terracopian on the wall.
Yeah. But you are right. He is that kind of photographer. I wonder what it is that makes some photographers just able to think, right, that, I need it, mine, completely sort of focused in every sense of the word, tunnel visioned, if you like, to create that moment, Doesn't matter what else is happening outside the frame.
You know, I was thinking about something the other day that's slightly related to this. I picked up my X100V and ever since I've been using Fujifilm cameras, I've switched off the shutter sound, like made it totally silent. Yeah. And I've always thought that's the right thing to do. And actually, I switched my X100V to the loudest possible shutter.
I've got that for my photo walk program. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did it because for some very, very weird reason, it makes me feel like a proper photographer.
Isn't that interesting?
Very bizarre.
Yeah.
You only click once because it goes click, you know, and it just worked. It just made me. I wouldn't do it at weddings or anything. You know, I would still be using it silent then, but when I was just pondering around the garden and stuff like that, and I was, you know, it definitely made me think more about the picture. And I was, you know, purposefully, you know, I had it on single shot. I didn't have it on, you know, multiple bursts or anything like that. And one click, and the noise of it, made me think, because there's something tangible about that. You know, it's audible, but it's almost tangible, isn't it? And and then I put the camera down and went out and read about Edmund Tarakopian.
Well, I've been doing the same with you don't have a choice with the R4 that I've got, the film camera. It is, and again, going back a couple of weeks when we first talked about me being down to those mines with that shutter, it was literally a clunk to move the film on, and here we go again. And you don't find yourself you can't overshoot anyway, and certainly not that scenario. I was in the mines trying to find any form of light at all. But there is something to it. Yeah, it would be nice if the cameras, especially the X100V, if it had a proper. It doesn't quite sound like a mechanical camera shutter. It's a funny noise, isn't it? It's a digitized version of it. Yeah, I'm sure there must be a way of making that sound nicer. It probably is. I mean, I'm not interested in making it sound like a film camera in terms of winding the film or anything, but that kaplunk. Yeah, you know, that kaplunk that you only get, I think, when there's a mechanical presser inside the shutter button that goes clunk. Yeah, that'd be good. Have you got time for one more? Well, just do this really quickly. Richard Wiedekind. Hi, guys. I'm not sure if we did this one, but this is probably one for Kev, as he's commented on the topic in his blog and on the podcast. His advocacy of professional mode seemed to surprise Neil and a good few of his followers, including me. My question is, seeing the same metering system is used in program aperture shutter modes, is there any difference in the calculated exposures? If I set my camera in program and use program shift to scroll through shutter aperture pairs determined by the meter, aren't I essentially doing aperture exposure, shutter exposure when I select either an f-stop or a shutter speed in the sequence? All being equal shouldn't really matter, should it? No, it shouldn't really matter, but he's right. So I'm not sure whether he's using a Fujifilm camera or not, because he's talking about program shift, which is, you can do program shift, but mostly, like when I used my Canon system years and years ago, I would use program shift to do exactly that. I would switch between aperture priority and what have you, essentially changing the aperture by shifting it. But what I'm referring to is fully P mode, so where I'm allowing the camera to take full control of aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. It's making all of those choices. So that's slightly different to program shift in that I'm not controlling any of those things. So yeah, slightly different. But yeah, there's no you do what you want. You know, that's do what gets you the picture. There's no right or wrong. Thank you, Richard, for your email in there. And that's it for another week. We could do with more of your questions. As always, send them to... Well, there's two ways. You can send them to us via the Facebook page in the post that's especially for your questions that's in there. Or you could email them in to click@fujicast.co.uk, click@fujicast.co.uk. Send your questions, your stories about your work, and anything of interest you think listeners will enjoy or learn from via the show. Thank you to those that support the show by Patreon. If you can do it, fantastic. For those who feel it's appropriate, of course, not just for us, but for your pocket too. But the donations will help this show stay here as an ongoing project. Music I forgot to say last week, and I should always do this. From Blue Wednesday, we're supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And we will see you next week. Bye, Kev. Bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.